So guys, today I wanted to talk about a piece of kit that I generally carry, especially when I go out for long-term situations, and it is Shoegoo. And today I'm going to be talking about why I carry it and why I with Shoegoo. I do want to note that, like I was saying, I don't always carry Shoegoo, but especially when I'm going into long-term situations, I definitely make sure that I have it. And the reason, or the way I see Shoegoo being primarily used is to be a direct competitor to sewing. And essentially the Shoegoo kind of gets rid of sewing. And I really like the whole fact of Shoegoo over sewing, just for the fact, or the first reason I really like it is the whole fact of skill, or the lack thereof. With sewing, it is a learned actual skill. You have to know what you're doing when you come to sewing. You can't just pick up a needle and start attacking the cloth, or you will mess things up. You have to understand how to stitch and how different stitches work to effectively repair your gear. With Shoegoo, however, so long as you know how to squeeze paste out of a container like this, then it's pretty much all there is to it. You know, you just squeeze out the paste onto wherever you want to repair, adhere the two sides, let them set up and cure, and it's done. And I really, really love that whole fact of just lack of expertise. You know, that makes it a lot easier to do things with Shoegoo. So the second reason I really like Shoegoo is at the same time that you repair it and that little bit of skill, you also are waterproofing the same area that you are repairing. And that's really nice because when you use cloth or thread, whatever your thread is made out of, it's not likely going to be waterproof. So that means after you repair your piece with thread, you have to go in and waterproof it. Whereas with Shoegoo, once you put it on there, that same area you repaired is now also waterproof. And that is a really awesome thing because I don't like gear getting wet. You can also actually use this as a second thing as a protective coating. If you ever want to waterproof a piece of gear, you can waterproof it with Shoegoo as well. So that is an extra nice thing that you have. So the third piece is really just goes back to multiple pieces. Even if you look at the most basic sewing kit, you're going to need a spool of thread and a needle, even just those two pieces. Whereas the nice part about Shoegoo like this is everything I need is right here. I have the thread, the needle, you know, anything else that you'd be carrying right here. This is an all-in-one piece of kit. And so that means that I don't have to keep track of all those different little pieces. And at the same time, with needles, obviously, they're going to be extremely sharp. So you're going to need something to encase those needles in, hopefully something that doesn't get lost or spills the needles. So you'll generally need some kind of sheathing system. And while you can definitely get sheathing systems, those add quite a bit of money. Whereas once again, this is still that like $8. So, you know, if your sewing kit costs you $8 and then you have to go buy, you know, a sheath, that's additional money. Whereas this still just cost me $8. So that is something that I really like about Shoegoo. It's all in one. I never have to worry about losing a particular piece because just because you find your needle or your thread doesn't mean that you can actually sew with it. You know, you have to have both a needle and thread, and sometimes you need multiple needles to accomplish a job. So that is something that I really like about Shoegoo. So the fourth part, and as I kind of mentioned in the third part, is cost. You know, with this, once again, it's this all-inclusive package here. And while certainly with any mathematical equation, there will be a time when this costs more than the thread and needle. But for, you know, bushcraft repairs, I'm hoping you're not going out and having to constantly repair things. You know, this is something that you might use every 10 outings or maybe like every 50 outings or something more, you know, larger like that. So this is not something that you will be using a lot, hopefully. So when we take that into account, the frequency of use of a piece of kit like this, generally the cost is going to be far more effective on Shoegoo as opposed to getting a full-on sewing kit. Now, if you do end up sewing a lot for some reason, the sewing kit might actually be the better choice, but like I was saying, for gear repairs that are not going to be constant, they're going to be like every once in a long while, generally Shoegoo will be first. And then fifthly, and this is why I'm putting this at the last point, is that this stuff is very flammable, and that's a good reason, because for survivalists and bushcrafters we have to really follow the kind of Dave Canterbury 5-tool rule, in the fact that we need to have the most efficient or most effective gear we possibly can. Gear that's not only good at repairing other gear, but also things that can be lit on fire. And this stuff actually has petroleum distillate in it. And if you guys are familiar with that, or if you don't know what it is, that's the primary ingredient in lighter fluid. So this stuff is extremely flammable, so you can use it as an accelerant should you ever need to, get a little bit more accelerant for a fire. You can easily use this to help start fires, and I really like that as that additional fifth kind of nice part to this. So those are the 5 major reasons I think Shoegoo is a lot better than sewing. Now, I don't want this to just sound like a straight promotion. There are downsides to it, and the 2 largest downsides, and where sewing beats Shoegoo, is in the fact that there's a cure time of at least 24 hours with this. So whenever you put it on a piece of gear, you have to let it sit there and cure for 24 hours, at least 24 hours before you can actually use it. And the second other part is there's also a cure temperature for this. And that cure temperature range is between 50 above and 90 above. So you have to have some range in between those two while this is settling for that 24 hours. So those are probably the 2 largest downsides. Once again, when you sew, it's not going to be as important, because, there's no curing time. When you sew something, it's automatically done. There's never any curing time, and there's never any curing temperature within reason. You still have to have it warm enough that you can finally manipulate your fingers. So in a way, there is some kind of temperature. You probably want around 50 above at least, because sewing is not something that you could generally do with like gloves, or certainly not mittens like this on. So you would have to have some reasonable temperature even to sew, but generally, theoretically speaking, you can sew at any temperature. So those are 2 of the biggest downsides, I would say, to the Shoegoo. One kind of in a way can be, at least the temperature, can be abated by actually starting a fire with this that allows you to bring an area up to a proper temperature for you to allow gear to cure. So that is something to think about. But overall, like I was saying, you have to look at it all and see if those 2 negatives are enough for you to prevent that. I know a lot of people in the lower 48, most states rarely even see below 50 above. So, for the whole curing temperature, that may not be that big of a deal. However, the curing time can suck, especially if, say, it's like your boots, and you're trying to go chase after game animals. Having to stop for an entire day could be bad. But, you just have to weigh the risks or the benefits of it, and, remember what the benefits and negatives of sewing are if you choose to go that way. But anyways, guys, don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, and let me know if you guys have any other gear repair methods that you use, or if you guys use Shoegoo, what you guys use. I'm always curious to know, and look at what you guys carry. But that is what I personally carry, especially for long-term outings. Like I said, this isn't something that's always going to be in my backpack, but if I'm going out, or if I know that there's a potential for me to damage gear to the point where they would need to be repaired in the field, I definitely carry Shoegoo. So anyways, guys, that's it, and I'm out.